I have not been very good at documenting this project thus far. FedEx not delivering me no parts. Hello everybody and welcome to the Car Lab. I have not been very good at documenting what's happened thus far. But, we'll just shimmy to the side of that. This is part one of my series of engine swapping. I'll go with that. My 1980 Mazda 626 or Capella. It's badged as a Capella, so it's a Capella. I'm swapping out the original engine for engine out of that. No, not the Suzuki. No, not the Peugeot. The Miata there. For whatever reason, this isn't doing what I ask anymore. I think it's had enough of me. Been through a lot with this car. There we go. But yeah, the engine has blown up on me 3 times in 7 years. I figured it would be prudent to do a walkthrough of Tomo pre-engine swap. The engine, as I said in another video, or perhaps in this video, depends on how I edit it. This is a single overhead cam 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with Hemi heads, twin barrel carburetor, developing originally 74 horsepower. I have a ton of Spog stuff in boxes somewhere in there, probably the Weber box, that originally came in the car. At one point or another, I just removed most of the Smog equipment. It woke up the engine a bit. I never dynoed it, so I have no idea. I'd like to say 90 horsepower, maybe more like 80. Who knows? But yes, there is rust on this rail. There you go, down there. That piece is pretty bad. And the frame rail on that side's a bit terrible. I mean, it's just kind of, this is my baby. I'm not going to sell it. I can't really sell it and expect to turn a profit. That's just never going to happen. This is what happens when you get something rare and then decide I want to keep it forever and pour a lot of money into it. Because the thing is, something that is this rare, very few people have the nostalgia for it. And it's just, therefore, it's not worth much. That's just kind of the name of the game. Battery hangs out down there, and even though it's loose, it is actually kind of held in by the frame rail, so I've never had to worry about that. This is for the gauge cluster, and just there's all sorts of little tiny bits and pieces like that. It's actually quite simple, honestly. It was an AC car. Never worked under my watch. Maybe with the Miata engine I'll finally be able to, get some AC going. I love this. That's really cool, of course. Don't think I'm going to be able to retrofit that for the Miata engine and have it look anywhere near resembling good. So, I'm going to keep that. Everything else I'll try to sell, but I'm going to keep at least that as a souvenir. I once went to Radwood, and 2 elderly Japanese guys came up to me. The car had a Weber at that point, so it had the little Weber air cleaner. 2 Japanese guys come up to me and go, "Where's your air cleaner?" And I'm like, "I have it at home." So, lessons learned. Always bring your stock air cleaner, kids. These are just various stickers that I've put on over the years. My car club. I went to school in San Francisco, worked with some evil corporations, all that jazz. Yes, GTVA. What does that mean? That is a trim package I made up, and when this has a Miata engine in it, it'll probably mean something. That is an obscure and very nerdy reference to a late 90s video game called Free Space 2, in which you work for the GTVA and you try to and fail to save the star system of Capella from some aliens who blow it up. So, I'm full of shit like that. Let's see. I removed these door pockets because they were fantastic Fisher-Price plastic, and after a mere 40 years, they shattered like toffee. There, brown. So I need to find like some nice leather door pockets for that area. Make it look kind of snazzy. Yes, I do adore this steering wheel. The RX-7s had a 4-spoke wheel. I prefer this 3-spoke. It looks sportier in my mind. Yes, sheepskin, because the original vinyl, which, it's locked. There you go. The original sheepskin. No, that's not original, but it is sheepskin. Original vinyl. Looks like this. It's cool. It's cool looking. The merest breath of sun and hot weather will get you sweating. So these are here because it would be a massive pain in the ass otherwise, just quite literally. I still have power. So this is actually a deluxe option, and it's in the manual as like an option. I'm not sure if any cars actually came with these, but Mazda produced this fixture for 15 years, so I was able to find one pretty easy. But yes, I have reading lights like some rich person. That is another deluxe option that did not come with the car. It originally had an analog clock with plastic gears, and after a mere 42 years, it disintegrated. It never worked. So there, I have vacuum fluorescent clock, which is very, very cool. Yes, original AM/FM Clarion radio still works just fine. Easily one of the coolest things about the car. And if you're wondering, what do you listen to? I just plug in an FM transmitter and plug in my MP3 player because I still think it's 2010. This, just sit down. This is a deluxe, or rather, coupe-only gauge cluster. In this country, you could not get the sedan with a tachometer. You got the speedometer, and by the way, that's the original speedometer. A temperature gauge, a fuel gauge, and a bunch of idiot lights, which was common for the period. The coupes got this cluster. However, this particular cluster is Euro spec, and you can tell that because it's a bunch of symbols and not like, in plain English, temp, battery. So, it's pretty obvious why they did this, because there are many, many languages spoken in Europe, and it would be ridiculous to try and produce, lens flare, try to produce, gauges in every language in Europe. So, symbols, that's what they get. You have deluxe. This would be power side mirrors, which was, I believe, coupe only. Actually, I believe these would be the power side mirrors, and they would be individual pieces. This would be choke if your car was so equipped. You could not, every American car, USDM car, had a auto choke, including this one. But in Australia, I think even in Japan, that was an option. even though like many things, it came standard. So they just, stuck that there. I'm probably going to use that because I'm sure there's something involved with the Miata engine that I will have to retrofit a switch for. Check engine light, maybe. I think that'd be fun. That is for your trunk, and it does work again. It popped it. Take my word for it. You do get a little glove box. And look, gloves, which I never wear because they're black, and I get sweaty, and, I get hands covered with black ink. But, they look nice, and, yeah, you get a secondary glove box because deluxe. You get a little cubby hole down here. Why? Because you could, and I'm not sure if this was a factory option or a dealer option, you could get a Clarion cassette player or an 8-track. Now again, I'm not sure if the dealers offered an 8-track. I'm thinking they offered a cassette because I've seen that much more common. And mostly in Australia, by the way. Here, it's an economy car. You're lucky to have AM/FM radio. The big three didn't offer AM/FM as standard. So, it was a different time. I'm thinking of putting an 8-track down there just because I have an 8-track recorder. Yes, your glove box is locking, pretty standard flare, but, not everybody got that in the day. You do have a little storage cubby here, which I have stored things. More storage, your 5-speed, and obviously your handbrake. This is mildly interesting. So you have your hazards here, which does have a little triangle on it. Pretty straightforward. Easy to find and easy to operate. You have your lights, which is one stock, and the other stock does all the things that aren't the lights, which I find really funny. It's like, this is your turn signals, this is your wipers, your washers. That is to say, I found it funny until I started having GM cars, which they're all like this, so, yeah, it's, but still, I think it's mildly hilarious that this stock is just for lights. Also, that delightful little chime. Your doors ajar thing is just a buzzer, which is very annoying. But lights, you get a little Tinkerbell, so that's kind of neat. Defroster makes a nice little noise. And then reverse. Yeah, you do get your AC. You get your... that's to recirculate your air. It took me like 5 years to discover that. So, it's kind of like BMW. You just content that was installed at the factory that you only discovered years later. Kind of the reverse of that. And then, your standard flare, your heater, defroster, what have you. Let's go into the aft chamber. Which, not too much to say. In some markets, you could get an armrest, I believe in Japan, but this is an economy car. Why would you need an armrest? Yes, actually, there are seatbelts for 3. I actually thought this thing was way wetter in here than it needed to be. Turns out I was paranoid as usual. Road and Track featured this car twice. In the second one, the sedan, they bitched about how there was not a whole lot of legroom in the back. Yeah, but it's a little car. Give me a break. It's not like I have any friends to carry around anyway. I'll edit that out. Yes, I did go to Radwood. This was a guy in Australia made that. And made it in my color too. But yeah, that's just kind of special little solidarity with the Aussies. Car club again. And then these guys, I have actually, these are the closest parts cars to me that I regularly pillage from, are in Alberta, in Canada. Canada's Texas. And from one of the cars, or there's 3 of them actually, from those cars I have new window regulators. So I can, use my front windows again, which is nice. And this panel. Because that's not an oil pan, that's just a shield thingy. Because under here, this was all rust. And it was really bad, and it was getting into the trunk. And the trunk's a little rusty, but, I'm dealing with it. But yes, this is a new panel. That is to say, a panel pillaged from a fellow 626. This holds itself up. Amazing! Yeah, that was some fabrication work done by my brother and myself. Your jack, which is the correct color. And then this, which was, I just needed to repaint it because it was very rusty. And, blue is blue, right? Never mind the fact that it's like robin egg blue. And yes, Van Ness Mazda of San Francisco, one of quite a few Mazda dealers in San Francisco during 1980. Their biggest claim to fame was that they prepared an 82 sedan, like this but facelifted, for the Peking to Paris Rally of 1982, which was canceled because, it was the height of the Cold War, so of course, and you're having to go through not only China, but, the Soviet Union as well. Since then, there have been plenty of Peking to Paris rallies. That is kind of the ultimate goal I have for this car, is I want to take it on Peking to Paris. It's insane, but it's nevertheless a goal. But yeah, I can't find much about this dealer other than that. That was pretty much it. And then they advertised in, the papers back in the day, obviously. And from there, I guess they folded in 85 or so. Just, yeah, it's one of those, many dealers that fell by the wayside of history. Look, another picture, emblem, decal thing of my car club, and that's a friend's company. What else? Oh yes, locking gas cap, because this is peak Malay's second gas crisis, and people will steal your shit. Unleaded fuel only, if I can point the camera in the right direction. Yes, it is a Capella GTVA. Why do you ask? Surprisingly, massive amounts of people have been fooled by this badge, and I roll with it. This is actually from an early 2000s Capella, which is kind of the last generation of 626/Capella. I would love to find an original badge from, 1980. I've yet to find one. A friend of mine in Australia is in the process of 3D printing them, but he has to learn how the 3D printer works. So that'll be exciting when that's done, and I can actually have the proper badge on there. Let's talk about these wheels. These wheels are not the original wheels. Originally, this car came with 13-inch wheels. These are Koenig Rewinds, 15-inch. This, it's peeling off. That came from a guy in Portugal. Just slap those over because they say Koenig on there, and I don't, no. I want, like the original center caps, it to say just say Mazda. So that's kind of a facsimile of the original caps. And yes, suspension. This is not the original front. These are not the original front shock towers. These are from an 81 RX-7, and they bolt right in, asterisk, with a 3-inch spacer. So a local mechanic did this for me, and it's, apart from rusting quite a bit, it's held up pretty well. Yeah, and because of that, I get ventilated disc brakes, which are kind of rusty because I haven't driven this in a spell. Ventilated as opposed to the originals, which did not have ventilation. They were kind of thinner discs. So, Is that going to be enough to stop the insane horsepower that I'm going to be putting into this? Maybe, if I'm careful. But I'm always careful. Always. The badges. Fine. Why not? So, AA, JAF, AAA, RAC. Pretty much the same kind of organization, but functioning upon different continents. AAA is AAA, American Auto Association. JAF, Japanese Auto Federation. AA, the Auto Association. And RAC, the Royal Automobile Club. There's subdivisions of these two kind of all across the former British Empire. So, I think between the four of them, I'm covered on most continents. But hey, at least I actually do have AAA. That actually is not a grill badge as such. Originally, it would have been a license plate frame with kind of that as the top centerpiece, if you like. But I think that looks really good as a grill badge. I rarely let other people drive this car. And so I'm like, it looks so good when it's sitting there while I'm eating or whatever. So I relatively recently, let my brother drive it, and I was, in front driving something else, and I see this thing in the rearview mirror, and I just think subconsciously, what a douchebag. Oh, wait. So, extra pompous points. Does it add 5 horsepower? I couldn't tell you. Lastly, I think, I love how this still says Toyo Kagyo. Company Ltd. So this was before they actually changed their name to Mazda. They were still, because the company has a long history of making things that aren't cars and then cars. Actually, first motorcycles and then cars. Just rather interesting history to that. But I think that's just, it's very cool hunk of history there. Just that plate. And it's in good shape. I'm glad it hasn't rusted like so many things on here. So yeah, this is this is Tomo in his penultimate form, pre-engine swap. Not a whole lot is going to change outside of under the hood, but yeah, I will certainly do a walk around when it's done, if I can stop skipping for a second, because, I will be way too happy that this car will, work. Yeah. Exciting times. I love it. And so it just comes down to coil, which I need to put on, which I will put on later. It just comes down to parts availability. Oh yeah, that's right. This thing is jank. I'll reveal how jank it is in just a few seconds. But thing number one is that people find these engines in the Miata, if I can find the latch. I've only done this a few hundred times. There you go. Of course, the fabulous 1.6 liter dual overhead cam B6ZE. It's off the top of my head, so I'm going to have to look at that. Engine. What does it make? About 150 horsepower? Something like that? I forgot. More than what the MA engine makes, that's the point. Here's our dog guest. What I did was, I bought this wretched 1990, built in 1989 Miata. There is not a straight panel anywhere on this car. There's our other dog guest. Apparently, because this happened, it's totaled. I don't actually have a title for it. And I just don't care, because, look, I'm going to be swapping this engine and transmission, because why not, out of here, and then I'm going to be selling it as a shell for anybody who's crazy enough to put a V8 in here, of which there are many. Metaphor garbage can. Oh yeah, and the fan is controlled directly by this wire that goes all the way back to the battery. So, does this engine run? Yeah, more or less. I'm still tracking down several gremlins. Already replaced the plugs and wires. I do have a new coil that I could put on there. Some genius and some previous owner decided the best thing, of course, would be to weld these bolts for the old coil. So that's going to be a challenge to try and get that off. I have a new O2 sensor. It's in the mailbox right now. Go get that. Go replace that. It's just, it runs rough under load. And we'll cut to that clip now. In neutral, rather. Idling kind of like shit, but not terribly. I'm going to roll back here and attempt to go up the hill and show you what's wrong. All right. That. So it's just kind of trying to track down that, and honestly, the Miata folks have actually been rather helpful. I mean, you do have to sift the help from the trolling, but, you know, not too bad. Better than I expected, and that's good. What will become of this Miata after the engine and tranny are out of it? I don't have a title for it, but I could probably get one if I'm brutally honest. Yeah, this will be sold as a shell to somebody crazy enough to put, well, whatever they want in here, actually. Maybe even, dare I say it, another 1.6. But in all seriousness, yeah, I think it'd be a nice little potential bomber or whatever. It does have aftermarket wheels that are not to my taste, but, you know, my taste is rather a bit more old school. But as those, it has coilovers. It's not bad. I did take this on a spin a couple of times. The first time I took it on a spin, obviously, when I was test driving it to see if it actually moved. You know, there was a moment where I was like, yeah, you know, I'd love to have one of these in good shape. I believe, yeah, the intention here is to get this thing running, in part so I could at least, you know, have like one nice drive in the Miata before I tear it apart for what all it's worth. But also, I mean, more, you know, to the point. If it's running good in here, it's probably going to run good in here. So, and, you know, as I've said, I haven't really wrenched that much before. This is a learning experience for me. Am I chickening out a little bit? Like, oh, I'm going to do things that are less of a crazy undertaking than an engine swap before the engine swap? You bet your ass, baby.